Hey everyone, my name's Nathan Pay. Welcome back to another episode of Blu Ocean Crypto. So today I want to go through Mavia's announcement on their Phase 2 Next Frontier. There is a ton for us to unpack here. So I really want to take our time going through this. We're going to read what they said, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on some of it, as well as let you know what this means overall for the entire ecosystem and even the industry of GameFi. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
I want to play.
Okay, so they're talking about how it rolls out today. Phase 2 is going to introduce critical components to the ecosystem, including integration of the Mavia token into the marketplace. This is massive, of course. And on-off-chain Ruby Explorer, additional game modes, and much more. Now, they want to summarize some things that were accomplished in Phase 1 first, and these are pretty awesome to see. So 4 million downloads, token launched, one of the largest airdrops in GameFi history. The base chain got integrated for the token in game, and then the Ruby marketplace came too. Now, if you take a look at some of these stats here, let me just open this up. We've got 4 million downloads, 50,000 plus on-chain tokens and NFT holders, 50,000 plus Ruby marketplace transactions, the 74,000 average daily active users. When you compare that to, say, Clash of Clans, it seems small, but when you compare it to like top Steam games, Mavia would actually be 11th on the list for the most played game on all of Steam. Now, I know it's not a PC game, it's a mobile game, but just to kind of give you guys a little bit of perspective there. We also got 275 million total Ruby earned in game, and nearly 32 million in-game battles fought, which is pretty crazy. So they talk about how this is from February through June. These are stats and highlights. So talk about how Phase 1 introduced Mavia to the world, but Phase 2 is when the earnings turn on. However, they're not going to create this hyperinflationary model like most other play-to-earn games. This one is sustainable, and all of these features are going to be rolled out one by one over the next 3 to 4 months, starting right away. So here's where we're really going to get into the thick of it. So the first thing is Ruby Battles, which is introducing PvP skill-based gaming. So you can ante up 50, 250, or 1,000 Ruby for essentially a winner-takes-all. It's going to be a randomly generated base. So this is what's interesting. You're not fighting each other's base. Randomly generated base, randomly generated troop set. So it's like, here's the base, you both get the same amount of troops. It's really, truly going to be a skill versus skill way to do this. I'm actually really excited about this. I think this is a lot more fair. I think people probably wouldn't want to do wager matches against people who are good base builders because they feel like they might have inherent advantage if it was just my base versus your base. So I really, really like this. This is a cool direction that they took it. They talk about how all battles are live and in real time. You're given 3 minutes. Now, there is a 5% fee that's applied to the Ruby winnings, ends burned, creates more demand for Ruby, and creates an infinite loop of usage for in-game with endless content for competitive players. And we can kind of see a little example down here just of this video. So now it's interesting. They say something to think about. What happens when a competitive player runs out of Ruby to enter Ruby battles with? How will they get more Ruby immediately? And it'll go into that a little bit later, but essentially what they're going to have to do is buy Mavia token to convert it into Ruby so that they can keep going, which is going to create buy pressure on Mavia, which is really good. So this video is pretty cool to kind of see an example of how it goes. It shows you the feed or the Ruby. I'm stoked for this. I'm going to be streaming this a shit ton, like a lot. I'm going to be spending a ton of time doing wager matches. I am stoked for this. Now this next one is incredible too. It's the Ruby scan. So right now, Ruby is an off-chain currency. It must be off-chain in order for compliance. Yes, we get that. But for that reason, they created the Ruby scan. So we're going to be able to see a lot of different things that's going on. So for example, we're going to be able to view players' Ruby balances, their Mavia balance, their legendary NFT balances and transactions. We can search accounts by name or wallets, view every Ruby mint transaction and battle details. What I really like about this is we're going to be able to look under the hood at certain players. How much Ruby are they earning per day? How active are they? What are they doing with their Ruby? I just really like how transparent this is going to be. And they also talk about how statistics for Ruby inflation, deflation, supply holders, and more are all going to be displayed. This is sweet. You can kind of see here on this video, it shows an example as well. I feel like I'm going to spend probably a lot of time in here looking through different accounts, looking through who has what, What? And I'm wondering as well, like when you go for a battle and you earn ruby, wouldn't that be considered something that would show up here? So you can kind of see maybe how many 2 stars and 3 stars people are getting. Could be interesting. Then, of course, we've got the web marketplace. Now, we've all been waiting for this. This is massive. We all know about this. This is basically how Mavia token is going to be tied into it. But what's really interesting about this, they do talk about how you don't need to be a player to use the web marketplace. And they created a concept called a dual order book, which means legendary NFTs have 2 real-time order books, one priced in Ruby and the other priced in Mavia. Now, there will be a 2.5% fee attached to all transactions. This just makes sense, of course. That dual order book thing is pretty important because it's going to be explained a little bit later. So just keep note of that. So talking about Ruby inferred price. So I noticed this one was where some people got confused. So I just want to clear this up. This is just an example that they're using here. This isn't necessarily any ratio or rate that they've created. So they're talking about how they want to create this vibrant ecosystem, marketplace with liquidity in both Mavia token and Ruby. However, as a result of this dual order book system, something else isn't created, which is an inferred Ruby price. So when item A has a current market price of, let's say, 1,000 Ruby in the Ruby order book, but also a price of 1 Mavia, this creates a ratio in the price of that item, 1,000 Ruby to 1 Mavia. So that's what that inferred Ruby price would be. So it's cool to understand that that is also going to be calculated. And the reason why that's important is moving on to the next thing is this Ruby swap tool. This blew my freaking mind. And they kind of hinted at it a little bit a few days ago when they showed that picture of like the Ruby swap to Mavia swap. Now, I'm basically going to summarize this because this is just insane. Basically what it's going to do is if you want to swap Ruby to Mavia, it's going to execute buy orders on the marketplace through NFTs and vice versa to fill that order. So it's like, say you want to trade your Ruby for Mavia, you're going to put that in. All these buying and selling orders are going to go on to help get you your Mavia and vice versa. It's going to be great for on-chain activity. It's going to help people buy and sell their items. This is, I didn't see this coming. I think this is absolutely incredible. The fact that all of it reminds me of like spot trading where your order gets filled, except it's doing it through NFT sales. Freaking mind-blowing, guys. This is incredible. So it's going to give users a similar experience to Uniswap, but behind the scenes, it's processing more data points to ensure the lowest slippage rates across the marketplace to provide the best price of Ruby and Mavia. It also creates demand for more liquidity in the token and Ruby across all NFTs, creating demand and relevance for each NFT in the marketplace, not just the largest priced items. Right? If they just had this like X Ruby is Y Mavia, and you just do this instant swap. Well, now the NFT, our NFTs aren't part of that whole process. So this is amazing that they really did this like this. I'm probably one of my favorite points. Then they talk about a marketplace liquidity pool. So we're going to be able to take part in this, and this is just like a normal liquidity pool. There's a tool called Marketplace LP Tool, which allows users who wish to earn a share off the marketplace fees generated to provide Mavia as liquidity and earn passive rewards. So their tool automatically converts Mavia to Ruby and NFTs as needed. In return for providing the Mavia for liquidity, you're going to earn a passive income. Perfect. This is just like regular liquidity pools. I think this is pretty cool. This is almost a way like staking rewards because we don't have token staking right now, and there's no kind of Mavia token reward for land staking either. So being able to do these LP pools is pretty sweet. This one I'm personally super stoked about as well. I'd say these next 2 points, but Ruby staking pools, didn't see this one coming either. Basically, there's going to be a 1, 3, 6, or 12-month lockup period for Ruby, and based on how much Ruby and your lockup period, there's going to be an APY in Mavia token. Right? So now we're going to be able to take all of our Ruby that we've been farming, especially some of us like higher competitive players, we can get more Ruby and start yielding passive income by locking up our Ruby. Now this doesn't burn the Ruby, right? Because it's just locking it up, but it's still taking it out of the ecosystem. There's going to be all this, that's going to be beneficial for Ruby, the ecosystem and everything as well, because you're taking out so much Ruby from it. So this is probably something I'm going to be heavily participating in myself, is doing high lockup periods with lots of Ruby to kind of see what kind of passive APY and earnings I can get. So especially with all the wager matches that are going to be. Okay, Alliance Ruby battles. Now, this one took me a little bit to get my head around, so I want to go through this. But essentially what they talk about is Ruby battles are a great way for players to compete in a skill-based mini-tournament to earn Ruby, but how can we attract large whales and guild teams to Mavia to compete on a large scale? And they're saying they're solving this with Alliance Ruby battles. So basically, when you create Alliance, you gotta acquire Mavia token, you use the Ruby swap tool to convert your Mavia to Ruby. You're gonna basically create an alliance, or if you already have one, you're gonna fund your alliance treasuries. Then you're gonna set the rules on who is able to use that Ruby. And then you're also gonna set what the profit split is. So basically what it is it's gonna allow a leader of an alliance to allow its members to go out and do wager matches on the alliance behalf, using the alliance's treasury. This is super cool. It's going to be really competitive because as a leader of an alliance, you're going to want to track win rates and who's the best performers, who do you really want to send out using your alliance's Ruby. They also talk about how it's a similar structure to guilds in Axie. And they're also going to be working on ways to help manage the distribution of ownership so that everyone can fund it too. So right now it's just going to be the leaders. So this is really cool. I also didn't see this coming. I think this is going to be, it's going to help create a bit of an esports and a competitive scene within all the alliances before we get wars, which is really a cool way to kind of lead up to it. So also we've got HQ8 release and game updates, which is massive. I'm doing lots of videos on HQ8, right? So Mirror's ability, base layout editor, daily gifts and challenges, dozens of bug fixes, and of course all the stuff that comes with HQ8. Then there's Mavia NFT and token bridge. I want to slow down for a second and talk a little bit about this because this makes sense to me now why we've had to wait so long for land integration, and also why they haven't been able to tell us why it's taken this long. Now, I'll use a good example. Parallel, or Prime Echelon, which is another gaming ecosystem, which was close to $1 billion market cap just a little while ago, couldn't even figure this out. So their NFTs are on base as well, and it's a little complicated. You're like buying them on Ethereum on OpenSea, but they end up showing up on base. But then if you want to resell them, you have to use their web marketplace. They're called Sanctuary for their Prime token, and it's just a little confusing. And Mavia was like, we're just going to build a bridge for all these NFTs. New technology, problem solved. So it makes sense they didn't want their competitors to know that they were doing this. So they had to kind of keep it coveted. So this is incredible to see that they've done this, and I'm really stoked. Like I said, it kind of answered all my questions and concerns I had about why land integration has been taking this long. This is not to be understated, guys. The fact that Mavia is doing this is groundbreaking in this industry in GameFi to see them do. And then they talk exactly about the land integration kind of afterwards. It'll be rolled out in phase 2 with the ability to rent our land to other players for Mavia token. Land NFTs will also be tradable inside a Ruby marketplace for Ruby and Mavia token. Basically, they're giving it to it all at once. They're saying, here's a land integration, here's partnering and renting, go for it. It makes sense. They needed these structures in place. They needed the guild management. They needed partnering, renting. They needed the UI. They needed the bridge. They just needed all these things together before we could get it. Guys, we are in for a wild ride over the next 3 to 4 months. Now, this next one's pretty cool. Permanent legendary item royalties. Basically what it means is if you were the original minter of any NFT within Mavia, you are now going to get a 0.1% royalty on any transaction done with that NFT. So wait a second. Now I'm incentivized not only to mint, but to sell instead of just hodl. So I'm incentivized to get it out into the ecosystem because as it gets shuffled around more, I'm just continuously earning these royalties. Wow, this is a super cool mechanic because it makes thinking about your strategy of just minting and holding or buying and reselling completely different, right? And now there's even more demand on being someone who's minting. And I wonder if this is going to tie into lands and how lands might get priority on whitelists for minting, and now some of the landowners are going to be able to get the royalties. And I'm just speculating here, but this could be quite cool. They also talked about updated Ruby ecosystem flow. So Ruby inflationary mechanisms, winning battles in game, mints Ruby. So the transaction fees, minting of new items, early unstaking fee. So like taking things out, wager match fees. And then there's this flow chart, which at first it seems intimidating. And I'm not going to go through it here in too much detail, but it's actually pretty simple to understand when you just kind of follow it through. You know, I'll give you an example down here with alliance managers. This is doing the alliance Ruby matches where you're sending people out to do the wagers for you. You know, you can kind of just pick a point and then go backwards to understand. The fact that they map this out like this is great. I do recommend you guys maybe pause the video here. Just take a look at this. Take your time going through it. The more you digest it, the simpler it seems. It just initially, it seems like, whoa, what's going on here? Big flow chart in my face. But this is incredible how they have this all mapped out. I'm super impressed to see this.
I want to play.
Ton of information to unpack, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video and you're as excited as I am. Basically, the rest of this year is going to be a wild time for us at Mavia, and I can't wait to see you guys in the battlefield. Okay, thanks so much for being subscribed to the channel. It really helps us out. We are your go-to source for everything when it comes to Heroes of Mavia, and smash that like button so we can get this video out to show to more people. Okay, see you all in the next video. Cheers.